It is now 4:01, and we are calling this Solid Waste Management Authority, City of Crescent City, County of Del Norte, State of California is now meeting in the regular session. Only those items indicated in the specific time will be heard in assigned time. All items will be taken out of sequence. All items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate public or staff availability. Will we please call the meeting to order and take a roll, please?
Commissioner Naffa? Commissioner Borges?
Here.
Commissioner Greeno?
Here.
Chair Wilson?
Here. And will we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Is there any public comment on any of the items or not on the agenda? Seeing no public comment, we will pull it back. We will address the consent agenda. Are there any questions by the board on any of the items on the consent agenda? Any questions whatsoever?
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing no public comment, we shall pull the vote, please.
Commissioner Naffa?
Yes.
Commissioner Borges?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. That goes us to the director's report. Director, please.
Thank you, Chair Wilson. So this report summarizes all the activities of the authority during the last month and highlights items that might not otherwise be on the agenda. In summary, the authority continues to operate the Gasky, Klamath, and Del Norte County transfer stations and to provide the required monitoring, accounting services, as well as reports to overseeing agencies. And the authority provides these services without any financial support from the City of Crescent City or the County of Del Norte and without receiving a penny in taxes. The per ton rates charged to authority managed facilities continue to be lower than charges for equivalent facilities in Humboldt and Curry counties. Regarding community events, this last November 8th, we had a Marine Flare community event collection, and we also distributed some reusable Marine flares. And I'd really like to highlight Assistant Directors Seymour's efforts that has coordinated that effort in working with the California Product Stewardship Council. And this was a milk run event, so it involved a lot of other communities collecting marine flares. But since she's been in the middle of it, she's going to give a more comprehensive report about that next community food meeting. And this one focused on food rescue. And we had that in coordination with the Del Norte and Tribal Lounge Food Council, as well as that was hosted at the Family Resources Center. So we appreciate all that partnership. We're continuing to make progress on that, and we also will follow up with reports when that report gets to a more complete stage. Looking at the consent agenda, the biggest thing that you approved there was payment to Clean Earth for our annual household hazardous waste event. And while that was a big bill, I do want to assure you that it's less than the $120,000 we had budgeted for that amount. Looking at consent agenda, the items 1.7 was a budget transfer to cover the change order 36, which we'll be discussing later in the meeting. Actually, now is a good time for that PowerPoint. Just wanted to show you a couple slides. We had on November 8th, a person, next image please, person ran into the inbound fence at the transfer station. Just to give you an idea of how badly this event went, that person was actually driving into the facility when they ran into that fence on the other side of the road. And just to add a little color to that whole event, they did get impaled on the poles and had to go back and forth in order to extract themselves. And in the process of doing that, they left behind their license plate. So just a charming event. But I was delighted to see that Hambro gave us a cost estimate to do that repair, and it's less than a couple grand. So
It was a U.S. government license, right?
it was.
Actually?
Yes.
it is ironic to be the victim of a crime and not have any responsibility for pursuing it. We did, of course, file a police report in charge of enforcement or tracking down that individual, though he is a known customer and in recent months has had cash shortages. So we had all of his information, including a photograph of his driver's license. So another day at the transfer station. Moving on, so you see in the attached to the director's report, you've got the agenda for the food recovery meeting, and you'll see moving on through the financial reports, also part of this section of the agenda. We look at the accounts receivable aging summary. You'll see most accounts that are over 90 days due have already been turned over to collections. Kathy continues to do an excellent job monitoring our accounts receivable and payable.
What's
yeah.
our trend line on those? Are we
We're doing
seeing-
quite well, and that each month when I do cover these reports, I always cover how we're doing in general on our finances. And the easiest summary that I've found of that is our main sources of income are the gate receipts we have at the transfer station and the franchise fees we receive from ecology. And those are all under contract. And so long as we stay within the amounts allocated for each of our budgeted expenses, and our income is coming in at or above our projections, then our finances are good, right? Because we're definitely in the black.
I'm just because we had talked at times before about being aware of our trend lines,
Right.
and seeing if we're increasing our defaults, if people are just not paying as much as they, and if we're seeing an increase in percentage of 90 days, 30 days, 60 days
Right.
out.
We're not quite
And
there
then
yet.
and then the other is just assessing our volume of trash being turned in and seeing if we notice any precipitative decline as we escalate our fees.
Right.
And if we're seeing a sudden drop off in volume, then we're my concern is that we still have it here, it's just not coming in. And
Agreed. Thank you for those comments. And yes, I regarding those two questions, we are not seeing a greater number of defaults, and our tonnage does continue to increase or stay steady. So looking at claims approved by director, you'll see the two largest expenses are to Hambro WSG for the good services they provide at the Del Norte County Transfer Station. And this last month, our second largest expense was to Dave Mason, who was doing some cleanup work on Forest Service property under a Forest Service grant. Looking at the accounts under item 2.4, you can see how things were received and at the Klamath and Gasky transfer station as well. And then finally, 2.5 is the report I was referring to before. You'll see in the upper part, you have the authority service fees from the transfer station. And at this point in time, 4 months into the fiscal year, we're at $59,593 ahead of budget in that line. And for the franchise fees from coming from Recology 4 months into the fiscal year, we're $12,126 ahead of budget. So at this point in the fiscal year, we're $71,719 ahead of budget. And so long as our expense lines don't exceed that, we're in the black. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions about the financial report.
any further questions from the commission?
No, just wanted to apologize for being late. Last chance had a little extra traffic on it than I was used to.
Gotcha. All right, that'll go to us on item number 4, please. Transfer stations, discussion of possible action regarding transfer station change order 36.
So before you, I believe at the dais you have a final transfer station operations change order 36. This has been a point of negotiations between Hambro and the authority staff, and we've involved our new legal counsel at the Rene Public Law Group to review these negotiations. But in summary, there is a vehicle door that is among the most important vehicle doors we have on the transfer station, and it's come to the end of its service life. And so we're looking at replacing that. And that is an expense that was part of the initial transfer station construction. So it's the first time we've had to replace such a large item. And there's the whole question about the balance between maintenance and repair and the need to replace. But there's no question that this item needs to be replaced. And we're all aware that this is probably the first of several items that will need to be replaced as the transfer station continues to age. It was built in 2005, and we presume that most of it has about a 30-year service life, but there may be elements that start degrading at this point. So this one definitely needs replacing. We're looking at this as kind of a learning experience, working with Hambro to try to make sure that the repair gets done quickly, but also looking at those expenses and looking at whatever we can find about making sure that the other doors are maintained. And if we can get to a better determination of what was the design service life of this unit, we want to have that information as part of this analysis. But in general, without a doubt, most of this expense will be the authority. It could be 100% of the authority's expense, but it really depends on the determination of the service life that has been depleted thus far. If it's above 90%, we're planning on paying the whole bill. But if it's less than 90%, then we need to have a conversation about maintenance and repair and documentation and how much of the service life was used at that point. So this is going to be a learning process, but we are all on the same team, and we're trying to get this repair done as quickly as possible. And so staff recommend adopting this change order. And I welcome Hambro to make any comments they have about the change order for you.
Well, I don't know about the door, but I've declined in the last 20 years myself, not moving quite as fast. This is a door that's opened up every day. It's the main door. Currently it's inoperable. We've replaced motors in it, but now it requires some springs up in the barrel that rolls those big doors up. There are 5 of those big doors. So, it concerns us that, and it's a significant amount of money. So, and as Ted mentioned, we're going to see more of this as it ages and we age. So it's part of the process. We appreciate the fact, the authority's willing to work with us on it. We're making some changes personnel-wise and what have you to try to improve operations at the transfer station. I've always been proud of the fact we have one of the best-looking garbage dumps that I've ever visited. So we take it serious. We want to do a good job. We need a new door there. So appreciate the consideration.
So what's our time frame on the replacement of this door?
As soon as we can get, once the change order is adopted, we will try to schedule that repair as soon as we can.
The motors and things that have been replaced in the past, who covered that cost?
It hasn't happened before.
I
Oh,
thought-
well, it was been a maintenance expense. It's as anything breaks, generally maintenance is the responsibility of Hambro, but over time, this door, they've replaced the motor several times, and it's gotten to the point where they're hand cranking it, which I don't even want to go into how difficult that is on a regular basis. And it's really impractical. So we really do need to replace this door. It's not just the barrel motor that needs replaced. The door itself is a little bent, which may add additional stress on the motor as it reaches the upper reaches. But in any case, we are looking at trying to repair these things so that they last for the long term. And so we're looking for a full door repair in this case. That's the expense that I've put in there for this change.
Okay. And then the prevailing wage is added on top of this contract price, so that's already included?
It's already, we had to get 2 cost estimates, and the second one included prevailing wage, and that was on advice of our legal counsel. And essentially, as a public agency, we have to pay prevailing wage on new construction projects. And so there's a little bit of a fuzzy line in terms of what's maintenance and what's construction. But in this case, with the full door replacement, our legal counsel was fairly confident this was a prevailing wage job. We should be paying prevailing.
Okay.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
Chair, I move that we approve this change order for the replacement of the vehicle door on the main Del Norte County Transfer Station building for the amount not to exceed $75,000.
Actually, that's one of the good things. I did put that as a placeholder because we didn't have the final cost estimate. So the cost estimate is actually $51,035 rather than the $75,000.
I amend my motion to
$51,700.
Okay, I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any public comment? Pull the vote, please.
Commissioner Neffa,
Yes.
Commissioner Borges?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. Discussion, item number 6, which is discussion of possible action on election of a secretary for the Solid Waste Management Authority Board Commissioner for January.
The last secretary of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority Board was Commissioner Mike Tompkins, who has since stepped down. And so we now have a vacancy in that position. These elections generally happen in February after the city and the county appointments and the new board is seated. But rather than have a vacancy, staff recommend that you actually elect a secretary. This is useful primarily for signing claims and such. I don't recall any additional duties beyond for the secretary beyond just occasional signatures.
I would welcome any nomination. Except Joey.
And it's usually someone who's not already chair or vice chair, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
That narrows the gate.
It does. I move to nominate Eli Naffa, our secretary.
And I'll move to nominate Jason as the secretary.
I'm already vice
Oh,
chair,
he's vice.
so that won't
You're
work.
ready what?
Vice chair.
Oh, well, in that case, since Darren's not here, I think that would be appropriate.
That work?
Uh,
Are you nominating Darren Short? sir?
Yes, he.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
You can second.
we, in that case, vote for that motion first.
That's right. The procedure is that, as I understand,
Yes,
there is
you-
no
the
need
last-
for-
last-
there is no
last
need for
nominated
second,
first-
the last
first-
nominated
first
is the
elected.
first vote. So
Yes.
the first. So if there are no more nominations, this would proceed to the vote first.
Any other
on-
nominations? Nona? Seeing no further. Go ahead.
Then it would be on to whether or not to accept the nomination for Darren Short to be the new secretary.
Secretary, yes.
That would be the
Please,
first thing to vote
please
on.
pull the vote.
Commissioner Neffa,
Yes.
Commissioner Borges?
Since he's not here, I'm going to say no.
Since you're sitting in his seat.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
See, now I could say no, but I won't. Yes.
You could say no.
I could say no because it'd be,
And
it'd
actually,
still
would-
go through anyway.
Would that invalidate it? Because
No.
don't you have to have a county and a city vote?
That is actually correct.
So you
But thank you for not throwing that wrench into this particular works. I As I read the votes, it looks like Darren Short is the new secretary. All right. Thank you for that.
That'll bring us to 6.2, discussion of possible action regarding adoption of Authority Resolution 2025 point or dash 205, establishing a temporary special project stipend specific to, and I wasn't sure, exempt employees.
There is only one employee we're talking about. To be clear, this was recommended by Commissioner Short. He said that there was a similar resolution that was adopted by the county, essentially to acknowledge the considerable additional effort that's necessary for some staff to put in for the implementation of the new ERP accounting system. And in our staff, that burden has fallen almost entirely on Catherine Brewer, our office and gate manager, and she's done a great job, and she's worked weekends, and this has been on her shoulders, and I very strongly recommend approval in this case. It's an extraordinary effort, and an extraordinary acknowledgement of that effort. It's not something we've ever done before, and honestly, I'm not sure we plan to do it ever again. But it is a single, one-time, 1 year, 10% increase in pay for that individual. So it works out to be under $9,000. It's definitely coverable by our budget. But I think in terms of staff morale, it's really critical.
So this is something that is in her job description. Is this something that when she decides to retire, when there's a person to precede her or to take her position after she leaves, will this job stay with that position?
This is a 10% increase for a 1-year period, and then it goes away.
Oh,
It's not fixed to the position. It's not an increase in salary. It's a one-time, 1-year, 10% bump to acknowledge the extra effort that's required. Once this is done, once we transition to the new ERP system,
Mhm.
supposedly there isn't any additional work to do.
Okay.
So
A lot
this-
of the transition work.
This is the new county's system, county-wide. So currently, she's having to do the old system
Mhm.
and learn the new system and then implement the old and bring it into the new. So she's
see.
doing her job plus training, plus learning, plus putting it all together. So once it's completed, then whenever someone new comes in, they'll just learn the new system and it'll be hopefully much smoother and easier.
Okay.
Would this be, I see it was for July.
It is for the whole fiscal year because she has been doing this for months. And I didn't even know the county had made this additional and very appropriate acknowledgement. And I
So will
really-
this be back paid?
Yes, it would. And our legal counsel did want to point out that the agenda pointed that this was specific to exempt employees, and I want to be clear with everybody, this is one employee, one time only, 1 year, 10%, then we're done.
Any other questions? Yeah. The only issue I know I have with this is the fact that I know that the ERAP offsets that the county did were basically hourly if they attended the training, which was mandatory, so they didn't have the opt-out kind of option. But the training was long. It was sometimes on the weekends. And so it was requirement for anybody that was going to accept this at certain times to be present. And we paid them for that extra time that they had to actually go into the training and do the training and whatever. So I'm not sure what the dollar amount and averaged out per county employee and whether that 9,000 is amicable towards that offset. I do not know because I'm not sure. Because it varied from employee to employee depending upon what hours they were required to be in their office anyway, and whether or not they had to be pulled off out of that office for a longer period of time to go undergo the training. But I know the training also included some weekends and did extend into beyond the work hours, and that's why the compensation was pushed forward by the county for this offset to pay back or to at least recognize that they're doing extra hours and we did pay for that ERAP training individually within the employees that are undergoing that training. So this is our recognition of the fact that this was outside of just county employees, but anybody that has to use our auditor system, and you are and are required to, and that I would highly recommend, in the process that whomever you think is going to eventually inherit that position, that you familiarize them with the ability to utilize that system, and that way, in case someone is absent or on vacation or whatever, the process can still be done by somebody in the office. So shouldn't just rest in one person's hands.
So I have not seen the budget, but you did mention that this is easily absorbed and easily
Yep.
handled, and it won't affect day-to-day operations by adding this.
Correct.
Okay. Then I would move to approve item 6.2, I believe.
6.2, yes. Resolution 2025.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
We have motion and second. Any public comment? Seeing none, hearing none. Please poll the vote.
Commissioner Naffa?
Yes.
Commissioner Borges?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes.
Excellent.
6.3, discussion of possible action regarding Authority Resolution 2025-06, adjusting rates for Delaware County Transfer Station, Klamath Transportation, and Gasky Transportation to reduce the need for pennies.
So as the board may be aware, typically we just do one rate change per year. That happens at the start of each fiscal year, and we go through a process each year adopting change orders and then enacting those new rates. In this case, we got a notice from our bank as we were trying to get change orders, which is how we build the banks for the daily making change for our customers. So when the customer comes in with a $20 bill and they have a certain charge, we can give them exact change. As a government agency, we can only charge the rates that have been approved. And so the lack of ability to get pennies ends up making us need to change our rates, because we can't charge rates to the penny if we don't have pennies to make in change. And if we don't have access to the pennies, then we need to adjust our rates, because we can't just charge whatever we think is going to be right. We have to charge approved rates. And so this rate ordinance, a rate resolution, essentially adjusts the rates, rounding down to the nickel. So we're going to honor our existing contracts with Recology and Hambro, and we'll pay them the amounts that are in our contracts, but we're going to lower the rates to the customer, rounding down to the nickel, so that we don't have to rely upon having pennies. In addition, we have to change our scale management software, which is an additional programming item. So that's another $1,840. And then we'll also have to change the rate signs, and that's about another $1,000. And then we'll have a little bit less income because we're rounding down to the nickel. I'm thinking in the remainder of the year, we're probably looking at about $3,000 maybe. So on the whole, through the end of the fiscal year, I would expect this change to impact the authority's finances by about $5,000. So I think this is something we can weather, but it is the right thing to do, and it's something we need to do in order to be able to charge to the nickel. So staff recommend approval of Authority Resolution 2025-06, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, at least my thought was instead of spending extra money to have the new signage for the different rates, would be to just keep the rates the way they are. And then just the bottom line is that when they're paying, then we round it down to the nearest nickel.
Yeah, the only difficulty you're going to have with that is that you have to balance out your
Right.
cash box at the end of every day,
Mhm.
and it has to match up with the income total. So, and even pennies start making problems for yourselves.
Thank you for saying that way. That's exactly right. And
Hey.
and it honestly,
Close
Kathy
out.
does a great job with our accounts, but both Kathy and Haley, as they're reviewing the daily tickets, if they're off by 3 cents, they are not done with that day. They need to find those 3 cents. Serious, because if being 3 cents off, you can really miss something. Anyway. So it's part of the daily forensics to balance the cash accounts. And so we have to have rates that we are defensible down to the nickel. We can't, rounding is not accepted by accounting standards.
How do you clean that up on the tonnage weights? Because if you have point whatever, how do you keep that clean?
Well, we always do the calculations, and the calculations are embedded in the software. And then when we're out at Klamath and Gasky, those are actually handwritten out and hand calculated. And so in those cases, we can round down to the nickel, but it has to all be approved rates. And like I said, the rates right now are down to the penny. And so we calculate those calculations using those pennies. So,
And you're rounding down, so you're never going to be
right.
Okay.
taking more money in than you should.
Yes, that's correct. That's at least true through the end of this fiscal year, because, it's a new precedent.
Okay.
I'll entertain motion.
I'll make the motion to approve item 6.3. So the Authority Resolution 2025-06, adjusting the rates for the Del Norte County Transfer Station, the Klamath Transfer Station, and the Gasky Transfer Station to reduce the need for pennies.
Have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that. The end of an era.
Yeah, well, when they cost more to make than they are in value, it goes away. We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Nobody wants to say a sad recline for the penny? Okay. We'll move on then. Poll the vote.
Commissioner Naffa?
Yes.
Commissioner Borges?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. Brings us up to 6.4, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-07, establishing an electronic signature policy.
This came up when we asked our legal counsel to sign one of our documents adopted at the last meeting, and they said, "Hey, do you have an electronic signature policy?" I said, "No, we don't. But since we're talking at distance on a phone and I'm about to email you the contract, maybe we should." So essentially, they drafted this based on some other jurisdictions. We think it's workable, but mostly it accelerates the process by which we can get final approvals on contracts.
Makes sense. I'd move to approve item 6.4, resolution 2025-07.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any public comment on the Biden policy? The Biden policy?
The auto pen.
Having none, I guess we will motion to go poll vote, please.
Commissioner Naffa?
Yes.
Commissioner Borges?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. That brings us up to 6.5, discussion of possible action regarding a report describing the authority's financial information regarding post-employment benefits as required under GASB 75 for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2025.
So Rich might be able to tell us more about this, but essentially GASB 75 is a law that requires, it's an accounting standard that requires us to assess the financial liabilities associated with post-employment benefits. And so this involves, like any other actuarial study, a bunch of presumptions about what is going to be the rate of retirement, how many people are we talking about, when do they retire, what's the accrual of the
Rate of return.
rate of return on our investments. And these are all projected out into the future, primarily for the purpose of assessing how we're doing in terms of addressing those liabilities, and what is the essentially the calculated minimum fee we need to submit as part of the payments to those liabilities. We do that every year. And so, for instance, in this fiscal year, that amount was calculated at $57,324. We've budgeted $100,000 this year. And this year, as in some of the years prior, we've budgeted more than the amount that was calculated to be the minimum payment, because we felt like it was a benefit to accrue balance in that account so that those liabilities didn't continue to grow much faster than we're building those account balances. So while this is useful information to assess whether or not we're making the right payments, that's really kind of the limits of its utility, because these are all projections out into the future, and they're not as reliable as our current account balance, because the current account balance is something you can actually draw on and talk to a bank and have a real amount. Whereas beyond this report, we're all talking about our projections about what might happen in the future. And it doesn't have a direct bearing on the financial health of this agency, apart from looking at how much should those payments be. So I do think it's good to look into these details, but in this case, I'm not sure that it's a very educational process, because essentially we're looking into their presumptions about our fiscal health. And
Yeah,
what-
and the only thing I can say is that, you know, what we really want to be cognizant of and looking towards is what is our unfunded liability going forward, and whether or not we are reasonably making those assumptions that are being put into the GASB 75 are reasonable, and we hope over time obtainable, because as we know, 2008 crashes just gutted, and what ended up happening is in order to meet those percentages that were no longer being obtained, they had to come out of the pocket of the entity, and so we don't want that to end up happening. as they increase our contributional sections in order to make up for the lack of hitting their goal of what they anticipated their rate of return was going to be. So, I mean, that's the analytics on this is just to make sure that we aren't, and the entity is not falling itself into trouble, and that, you know, the employees are entrusted and can trust that their retirement will be there at the time when they request it, as opposed to having to tell them, I'm sorry, but your investments are gone. You know, so this is a very important and needed report that we do get out, and we have to look at the analytics in it to make sure that what is being assessed is being assessed in a reasonable scope. As we found out with California, when they were expecting, you know, a 7.5% return on investment annually, that was unrealistic, and over time we ended up having to pay for that, and are still paying for it, as a matter of fact. So, any public comment on this issue? Then I entertain a motion.
I just wanted to clarify. So does this deal with retirement also, or just the health and dental benefits?
All retirement liability.
Okay. And then like the phrase in here that says the authority pays all retiree medical and dental claims minus the portion of premiums paid by the qualifying enrolled retirees. So in other words, we would pay up front and then they would pay us, or what?
I'd have to investigate that one.
Okay.
And that's part of this process. I don't necessarily know the details of all of the retirement benefits, and I kind of rely on the interplay between this contractor and our the Del Norte County Human Resources Department.
Okay. Are you familiar with the county's portion of it? How they handle it?
I'm familiar with the county's portion. I'm not sure whether or not you tied directly into the same provider that the county does.
I believe we are, yes.
So if it's tied into the system, yeah, it's basically you pay your portion at the time.
Mhm.
There's a portion that we pay every month, you know, out of your salaries, out of your payroll, that goes into your health benefits long term.
Mhm.
And then depending upon in the county case, after 25 years, then the county will carry you further after your retirement without any additional funding required. They'll cover your portion.
Mhm.
Under 25 years, if you retire, then you have to pay the percentage of that health benefit portion if you want to retain that benefit.
Okay.
Motion?
It's mostly a receive and file.
Okay,
unless you
just
want
a
any
receiving file on
follow-up.
this one? Okay, great. And then last was discussion on possible adoption of support proposition AB 762, Irwin and Wilson fostering the transition of reusable and refillable vaping devices.
So we
please?
are finding there's an increasing diversity of materials that are appearing as wastes and that are not readily manageable. And so there's a few categories of these. We were just talking about solar panels today, but in this case, we're talking about vaping devices. Vaping devices are a particular problem also oftentimes encountered by school vice principals, because they'll have to confiscate them and then they'll accumulate a bag of them and they'll say, hey, what do I do with this bag of vaping devices? And the sad answer is, we don't have a very good answer for that. And part of the reason for that is the way that the vaping devices themselves are made. So a single vaping device will have a bit of electronics in it, it will have a battery, and it will often have a vial involving liquid. You don't necessarily have the ability to even open that vaping device, or pulling out the battery or separating the electronics. And sometimes, especially even if you can, you don't necessarily know what's in that liquid, because there are people who make their own home brews for their vaping devices. So all of those materials have different management streams, and generally we don't deal in liquids. So this is inherently a management problem. And so this bill would ban the import, sale, and distribution of single-use disposable vaporizers effective January 2026. and it will require that vape devices have a removable battery and be rechargeable and refillable. And so that's the bill before you. There were other bills that were in play to deal with vaping devices. At this point, they've all died. So this is the only remaining vaping bill that exists this is the second year of a 2-year legislative session we're about to end. So this is the last vaping bill standing. And I think on the whole, staff would recommend approval. We're not generally for bans, but we're also not for having things that are regularly disposed that don't have any mechanism to properly manage them. I can't, as a person who knows where these things go, put it in any stream. I can't put it in electronics. I can't put it in the trash. I can't put it in our household hazardous waste program. I would need to break it open. That breaks it. So there's no good management thing for this. And to me, there's no good management thing after you're done with it, then why are you offering it for sale? Or shouldn't you put some expectation that this thing you're offering for sale should have some afterlife management of some kind? I think there should be. So without that, I think they should be banned.
Any discussion?
I mean, I think I'd be in more support of just banning them, period. But
Well, that's
at
what
least, no, I
that's
mean,
what it's
just all
doing.
vapes.
Oh,
All
all
of them.
vapes.
Get rid of all of them. I'd be in more support of that. But this is at least a step in trying to manage it a little bit. So I will make a motion to adoption of
just a support letter for you.
support letter. That's what it is for AB 762.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any vapors out there? Just checking. Just checking. My only comment is the fact that, yeah, one of the problems that you have with these particular items is there are so many cheap knockoffs of these that are not safe, not disposable. I mean, they're made very cheaply. They're sold cheaply, oftentimes under the table in the vape stores because they're coming in from Southeast Asia and China and whatever. But the manufacturing and the actual quality of these things are questionable at best, let alone the actual contents. But they are very popular and are out there in prevalence, and so I would be supportive of anything that basically makes sure that we're not flooded in with a bunch of cheap knockoff products that are going to be a problem because they are unsafe. Please pull the vote.
Commissioner Neffa,
Yes.
Commissioner Borges?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. That completes our meeting for today. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your participation. Come again next time.